Main Street Media, Utah. This is Talk with Jon. Looking forward to being with you here today. I'm going to have two guests. First, we're going to have Steve Elkins, and then we're going to have Joel Skousen join us in the second hour. So first of all, let's get to getting the show off to a proper start. By giving out the show prayer and the show mantra. I hope my show is a gift back to my forefathers, the founding fathers, and may it be an acceptable token to our Father above. Then the show mantra: where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Where the Spirit of Christ is, there will be liberty. And the greater the Spirit of Christ, the greater liberty will be. Now, let me get my co-host for this hour, Steve Elkins, on. Steve, thanks for joining me, brother.
Happy to be here.
Good. All right. So, folks, real quickly, you're listening to this on Main Street Media, Utah, KMMU. Looking forward to having you with us for the next 2 hours. And you can go to our different websites and areas where you can find that these shows have been recorded. X, you can go to kmmu.org. Our X web page, I guess you could, or X page on our X page on Main Street Media, Utah, as well as you can go to YouTube and Rumble. All right, so this as you can see, things look a little different on my end, folks, than it normally does. It's because trying a new computer out, and so things are a little slightly off from what they normally have been, and don't know that I'm loving it, and we'll see how this goes over the next couple of weeks, and we may make a change. All right, so Steve Elkins is a host on Republic Broadcasting Network. He's got his own show Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 to 9 Mountain Time. It's a show well worth listening to. And Steve, thank you for joining me, brother.
Yeah, actually, it's 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time.
Dang it.
Yep, that's all right.
Dang it. 7 to 9 Eastern. Okay. Yep. So,
hey, I want to say something real quick here before we start.
Let's do.
Pleasure to be here. Today is Charlie Kirk's birthday. He would have been 32 years old today. I just want to mention that real quick. And that's it. We can get in. Let's dive into the issues here. Let's get into it.
Well, actually, I think that's a good one to start off with. You sent me the most recent. We've got a lot of things. We're going to be jumping around a little bit, but let's bring up Charlie Kirk and the Osmonds real quickly. I want to go through a number of your texts that you sent me over the last week, and why not go with the most recent one first? You sent me a something that came off of Twitter, and some lady in her 60s saying she was done with the Osmonds. She'd been with them since Lawrence Welk, I believe it was, and back in the 60s.
Yep.
And basically like when she was born, and has given up on the Osmonds because I believe it was Donny Osmond had the audacity to sing a song about Charlie Kirk and take a positive perspective on Charlie Kirk. And so I think this is worth mentioning. Charlie Kirk, as you said, was 32 years old, got a ton of accomplished. I am not convinced on who took him out and who didn't take him out, but there's a lot of groups of people that benefited from him being gone. I'm going to say number one was the Democrats. Number two was a bunch of people in the Republican Party. And then everybody else, I think, is a distant benefiter. It looks like actually that Israel might have been one of the ones that were benefiting because there is a lot of information out there right now. Sure. Candace Owens is bringing it out, but I think there's there was a interview done between Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro right before, like within 5 days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, where Charlie Kirk brought up some things that I know that Ben Shapiro didn't feel most comfortable about. One thing I wish he would have done was gone right at the heart of the matter and say, what are your thoughts on October 7th? Do you think that Israel had nothing, the nation of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu had nothing to do with causing any death, life, with any loss of life or major loss of life? Do they bear any responsibility for October 7th?
Sure they do. Sure they do. Matter of fact, there's a great article in Lou Rockwell. The what happened prior to October 7th.
Okay, well, I'm going to say pause.
7th.
I'm going to say pause on that just real quick because I
Okay.
want to get let's hit the Osmond thing and then we'll
Sure.
come back to this because
Okay.
this is a major piece that we want to talk about, right?
All right.
So she said she's done with him because she wants to talk about Charlie Kirk. She calls herself a progressive, a leftist progressive. And I'm like, one thing that the left was known for up until a decade ago, it started changing about a decade ago, maybe 15. I noticed it 20 years ago, but I would say definitely a decade ago. I would say a number of people started noticing it. And then in the last 5 years, it's been like, one thing the left was known for is, I'll die for your right to say your thoughts. That was a common phrase of the left. I may not agree with it, but I'll die for your right. And they were even more well known for that, definitely back in the 60s and 70s, than I would say the Republican Party was known for it. And so to this lady, I would go, okay, you may not like this group because they have positive feelings towards Charlie Kirk, but let's be clear on what Charlie Kirk was. I will give it to you that probably the number one thing he was, and he tried to get across, was Christian. But the number two thing he was about for peaceful dialogue. And if we don't have peaceful dialogue in America, the guns come out. And so I think that is the number one thing that Charlie Kirk did, was had peaceful dialogue, and sometimes uncomfortable peaceful dialogue with the left, with those that he disagreed with. And maybe why they disliked him is because he was really good at it. Your thoughts?
Oh yeah, most definitely a very influential person of our time, and at such a young age. Actually, 31 is nothing, but actually he started out at the age of 18. I'm still rather amazed that an 18-year-old young man, could see, have vision, and understand that our country is going in the wrong direction. Is pretty amazing. I'm not sure I would have caught that at the age of 18 years old, but he did evidently, and saw there was a need to.
Steve, I'm going to say you probably would have.
I don't know. But I became more political in college. In college, I was very political. That's when I started, reaching out and giving my opinions and other things. I don't think at 18, I wasn't quite there yet. I did have some background, of course, my family, all military, but I do remember as a young boy, probably being around 10 years old or so, that my father was talking about on the dinner table. We did talk at the dinner table, and my father mentioning, seeing some TV clips, and back when they actually would bring you real pictures from the battlefield war, and my father saying what a terrible thing these young men are dying for a lie, first of all, but how young they were and they were dying. And of course, that will never, ever happen again. The media will never, ever show us battlefields. They'll never show us the true horrors of war. That'll never happen again, because it actually put an end to the Vietnam War, along with the Pentagon Papers, which told the truth that we were losing, but we wanted to continue staying in. And as soon as that story broke, the people found out. And of course, then we started seeing more demonstrations on college campuses, this and that. And finally, they lost the enthusiasm. The people would not support the Vietnam War anymore. And it came to an end. Can
I disagree with you on that point just a little bit?
No, go ahead.
I think we will see it if it serves the purposes of the powers that be. If it serves their purposes. So if we can show death and destruction and blown up bodies and everything, and it fits their purposes, I think it will. But because of the type of wars that, quote unquote, wars, police actions, whatever you want to call it, whatever we've been involved in, that hasn't played out. And so you are correct. But if we ever get in something a little that they can start using some of those images, I actually think that it will happen, and I'm worried about that in a civil war type scenario, those type of images being used. Yeah. But okay, so that's
we still got one other issue we should bring into the fold here.
Okay,
I am finding so much stuff right now that people send me, and it is already artificial intelligence, and it's been done so well that it's hard to determine what is real and what's not real. So, when you mentioned about showing us the videos of what's really going on here, is it real? Is it real? How can we tell it's real? Or is it artificial intelligence? I mean, they're willing to show you pictures of people. They're already label and tell you that they're terrorists. Look at this. We just blew this boat up with 11 people on the boat outside of Venezuela there. And we were told they were terrorists, but they never proved it. And they never made the case that there were actual terrorists or drug runners. We were never shown any proof. Donald Trump decided to be and Pete Hegseth, to give him credit for the bad credit for this one here, to play judge, jury, and executioner. I'm not sure, this is dangerous stuff here. If we can take the law into our own hands and break international law here, are we any better than the bad guys here? We're talking about we got to follow rule of law. And Donald Trump always talked about following the rule of law, following the Constitution. And I got to say, this guy is stepping all over both of those right now, and I'm very disappointed in him.
I don't know I don't know that Donald Trump has ever been a true Republican and a true conservative. He's much more a populist, and he was a registered Democrat for years until very recently. So I think he just saw the insanity that was happening in the Democrat Party. So I'm going to 90-10 that specific subject with you. So a regular guest of mine, Michael Letts, that comes on, listen, let me be very clear. Bottom line is, folks, I could be deep CIA. If you knew my bank account, you would know that that's not true. But the bottom line is where do we get our information? Who do we know? Who do we trust? And I want to dive on AI. So I'm going to hit 2 points real quick. First of all, so he said from his sources, he goes, that was a legitimate drug boat, drug running. I agree with you. We should have waited till they were much closer to the United States before we took them out.
Yeah.
If not, I wouldn't mind hitting them in international waters when they're like 20 miles away from not Utah, but the United States waters. Does that make sense? Where it becomes United States waters. I think somewhere within 20 to 100 miles, go ahead and take them out. I'm fine with that.
I disagree with you. No, okay, and here's why. Here's why. First of all, why not? Here, look at this through my eyes on this one here. The Coast Guard, whose job is actually to find, to stop the drug running. Why not actually stop this boat, board this boat, and make your case and tell the world, this is what we just found. We just got a boatload of fentanyl here, enough to kill how many people? Make your case. They didn't do that, which tells me they just played judge, jury, and executioner, and they never showed any just cause and any proof. We do have a thing called the law here, even international law. You can't just blow up a boat and tell everybody, well, it was a drug boat. Can't do it. Neither can the Coast Guard. And they would have been better off making the case that it really was a drug boat. And the reason they didn't, because I don't believe it was. First of all, you don't need 11 people on a boat to deliver drugs. Extra manpower on the boat is not necessary. It actually takes away the storage of actually bringing more drugs aboard. There may be 2 or 3, 4 people on that boat. You got plenty adequate people to move the drugs. You don't need 11 people. And I said, like I said, just like the Coast Guard can't blow any boat out of the water. They board it, they make their search, they find it, they take him into custody. And that's how you do it. That's how it's done by the book. Now, Donald Trump's not going by the book. The book, Chuck the book. Actually, we kid around.
I would say no one's gone by the book. since I don't know when.
I mean, where does this end?
Before
I
I
mean,
was
so
born.
if this continues on here, just blowing boats out of the water, never showing evidence and proof, they weren't being fired on. There was no battle back and forth. Better to have actually shown you actually had a case here of, first of all, that the fentanyl, the drugs are coming from Venezuela, which they're not. I can guarantee you the honors, the bad honors of that go to China. We've been talking about it forever. China producing fentanyl, dumping it in the United States. Well, that's when China was the big bad enemy. But now we need another enemy because we need to get into Venezuela. We need to do a regime change. They've got lots of oil, lots of mineral rights. We kind of want that. They're looking for the manufacturing consent, as Noam Chomsky would say, manufacturing consent. All we need now is a false flag of the United States, and just don't even have to prove it. Just say, point a finger of blame to say Venezuela's behind it. Venezuela's behind it. John, we saw the bad guys in the Biden administration. He had a slew of bad people in many positions here. And we saw the bad guys leave. Donald Trump push him out, get rid of him, bring in his own team here. But I gotta be honest with you, not happy with his team.
He's got a lot of bad guys with him too.
He does. That's the point I'm making. Yep, we saw the bad guys exit. We replaced them with new bad guys. So I'm very unhappy at this point. I'm an independent. I'm never going back to a party, no doubt about it. But we need to follow the rule of law, and we need to follow the Constitution. There are no exceptions to either.
So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm 90% with you, 10% giving 10% leeway. I think.
Let me ask you something, John.
Okay. If you
had a family,
hold on. The best, you are absolutely 100% correct. The best course of action that they possibly could have done is get on that boat,
right,
and make arrests. Now, here is what Michaelette said: is they attempted to board the boat, attempted to get the boat to stop. It didn't. They sent warning shots over the bow, and then they fired it. I'm fine with it. I am not good with how far they did that away from the United States.
Let me ask you right now, where's the video? Where's the video to confirm what you were just told to be true?
The video's got to get out there.
No, it's got to be, or it doesn't exist. You can say a lot of things. I'm asking on both sides of the table here, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you say something, we tried to do this, we had no other options but to do this, then you better show me proof. First of all, the video proof, what you say is true, because I don't buy it anymore. I'm getting tired of these people that are giving me these lame excuses of, we tried to board the boat, but they wouldn't let us and all that. That's bunko bull. You know that is. You can show the video. Show the video of what you say is to be true, and then I'll have no issues with it, as long as it's legit, not AI manufactured. But
okay, I mean, so I want to get to AI manufacturing. I want to get to that real quickly.
I want to make one more point real quick. What if? Okay. Donald Trump never considered this. He doesn't get everything right. If he got that wrong, and I believe he did get it wrong, then you killed 11 innocent people. You killed 11 innocent people. What if we came back right now and we said, okay, they blew the boat out of the water. There must be remnants of the drugs somewhere. There's got to be a whole bunch of debris here. Fish it out. Prove it to me. What if he actually assassinated 11 innocent people? Think about that. What if that's your family member? They were on a boat. They were going out. Maybe they're fishermen, for God's sakes. I don't know. But you don't blow boats out of the water and tell me it's a drug boat and it wasn't hostile and it wasn't doing anything to you. I mean, why not better to follow the rule of law, international law? If you think it's a drug boat, board it, make your point, your case, take him into custody, go through the process of prosecution, but you don't blow a boat out of the water. You flat out don't. Flat out don't. That's just not the way to handle things.
I would concur. And I'm not even going to try. So I'm just going to say they should have either got it in our waters,
exactly,
or had it much closer to the United States, that would have been the way to handle this. And then it would be then we're much closer to making the argument of what Steve's talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing on AI, everything we have to question that we see. So you call me, within less than, I think, 50 minutes after Charlie Kirk was shot, probably within less than half an hour.
Yeah.
As I'm looking on my phone and at the imagery, I'm going, I wonder if any of this is AI manufactured. That thought was already going through my head. Here's another thing that just came across. I just saw an article on a TED Talk, and I wish I had the note in front of me of who it was. But there was a TED Talk that was given a couple of years ago, I believe, and they have the ability to the average person to make them think they saw a stop sign when they didn't. You could see something that you think you're looking at or talking to people and have conversations you never had, and this can be done with the average person. I was like, wow, they're starting to put so it's like, what can we trust? What can we trust? The thing, and I think that now means, I think, as you were getting to, our government needs to go to an even higher level of proving what they claim, as opposed to, oh, just trust us.
Yeah. 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 It's going to be difficult for us to discern what is real and what's not anymore. It's being so well done. I mean, they can just take figures and people and manufacture this and that and then put it out there, and you're, geez, the guy had no part in it whatsoever. It's simply been manufactured. Artificial intelligence. It could, I always find interesting, John, that we get sold on this technology. We get sold on technology all the time. This is not the first time. Look at the banking industry, the digital banking. Look what they created. They told us it was convenience. It'll be great. You'll love banking online, all these things. And then look what happens after that. You have digital ID theft. You have fraud, ID fraud. You got
it started
all
with
kinds
credit cards.
Yeah,
It started
you got
with credit
everything,
cards.
and it did. But now you've added another avenue of fraud, identity fraud. I mean, stealing houses and mortgages and stuff like that, and getting loans on other people's mortgages. I mean, we've got more fraud than we've ever seen before. And we were sold on the idea that the digital banking and all this digital information we could put out there and doing our banking online would be a good thing for us, a convenience. And I always find it interesting that all this technology they try to sell us as a convenience always seems to get in the wrong hands and is always used against us. And I see AI to be the same situation, John. It will be in the wrong hands. It will be used against us. And now we'll have just created more problems, more fraud.
Okay, so I think we may get to the point. So I believe in the Bible. I believe in Revelations. I believe there's going to be some form of the mark of the beast. I believe that we're well on our way there. We see the mechanisms on how that can be implemented and how it can be done. I mean, we now know how that can be done very easily and very well.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, will we actually get to the point where people are going to start going, I'm going to live off grid? We're going to get to off-grid living. We're going to turn the clock back. We're going to find vehicles that were made in the 70s, 80s and earlier. And we're just going to live that lifestyle. And we're going to go off the grid and go live on our own and not be part of the system. Is that something that we're going to wind up seeing a bunch of? It's already starting to happen on a small level. Yeah. I'm wondering are we going to see millions of people start doing that?
It's possible, depending how far you can go with it. I mean, think about it. I mean, going off the grid, you're going to have to find a way, produce your own electricity, your own foods, the water itself, having your well, maybe. I'm kind of off the grid where I live. I'm in the country, so I am off grid, except for electricity. But then again, I have ways of producing my own too. So it could be, but be honest with you, I don't see most people understanding what may happen in the future. I think people are short-sighted on really what's going on. They have, I mean, if you think about it, John, I know a lot of people. I mean, Utah has got to be one of the best places that are really prepared for emergencies. Food pantries out there. My brother had one of those nice, beautiful food pantries. You walk in, it's like a huge, monstrous closet. I have never seen food storage so big, and there's a reason why you guys do that, and I understand that. And very few people have that. Now, everybody in Utah seems to be understanding to prepare for disaster or crisis and be ready for it. But most people in America are not like Utah. They're not prepared for anything.
We're not as prepared as we used to be in Utah as we're not as prepared now as we used to be in Utah. Mm-hmm. Now, there's still that mentality on some level. People that are gray hair like me have that. Some of my children do. At least a number of my children do. So it's still in the culture. But you're right. You would never see it in California. You'd never see it in New York, at least in any large city. So I've been to Arkansas. I've saw it in Arkansas. The people of Arkansas have that a little bit. So, but it needs to get bigger. It needs, and that.
Well, ask most people if you're doing your own little survey and ask most people. Ask them how many months could you, if the stores were all down and we had a huge supply chain shortage, and how much food do you have to last? How many weeks, how many months can you actually go without having to go to a grocery store? How much food do you have to take care of your family? And you guys are big on dry storage. I am big on dry storage. I could go a good year and a half, easy. With what I've got. And I see a lot of people can't do that. They don't have emergency food storage for any long period of time. And that's really sad. They don't have enough gasoline for a generator. They got one little tank, I'm prepared. I've been prepared for a long, long time. And it's better to be prepared than cross your fingers or be relying on government for a handout of some sort. I am totally independent. I don't want to be dependent on anybody. And so I'm set.
Well, I need a lot more neighbors like you.
Well, that's the issue. If neighbors know that the guy down the street is really good on storage, this and that, then you got another problem here. Because word of mouth, the next thing they know, at your house going, well, you've got too much. You need to share it with the rest of us. And now you got this situation here now of starving people. Starving people in another country will kill for food. Don't say it won't ever happen here.
Oh, it will happen.
Don't ever say it won't happen. Christianity disappears when people are starving. You have too much. I need some. I got a bigger family. I'm taking what I need. God will forgive me later on, maybe, but Christianity disappears when people are starving. I guarantee you.
Yeah. You're right. Well, what I mean by is I need more neighbors like you. I want all of my neighbors to be prepared. Okay. I think, if you could even have a community that they have 2 to 3 months worth of food, might be able to get to the point where you can start a garden and start being able to get food that way. But yeah. All right. So let's move on from that. I want to get to your thoughts. Let me give you my thoughts real quickly on Israel, Gaza, and Hamas and October 7th. I firmly believe that October 7th was an allowed event.
Yep.
An allowed event, if not manufactured. Could I see Netanyahu actually having tentacles that reached and caused people in Gaza to come across that border and Hamas to do it? The answer is yes, I can see that. Yep. Here is, and we've talked about this, and I have had another person confirm that Israel should have had helicopters on station right there by the border crossing. They should have had in the most rundown scenario and the most sit back scenario within an hour and a half. I believe, I want to say I had this is coming from someone that I trust fairly well. It's less than 15-minute flight time.
Yeah.
And so from a cold helicopter, pilot not in it, it should have been like sitting back at their home, which they don't have. They typically have, in fact, it's very well known that the IDF has pilots sitting in cockpits with power units ready so they can just, so those of you that don't know how aircraft works, you have an external power unit that is feeding power and actually can heat up on some level, have your engines slightly heated up.
Yeah. It's called an APU. It's called an APU.
Auxiliary power unit, right?
Yeah. It's a nice big giant generator, and every aircraft has one on, and it's a great. I'd love to have one.
Yeah. So basically the idea is, okay, we get the word. So like, and that means they're totally fueled. That means they're totally armored, meaning they have armament on it, ready to go. Mm-hmm. They have these standard, so they can have aircraft up within 2 to 5 minutes tops.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the way the IDF is. So at the very worst case scenario, they should have had aircraft on station within less than 45 minutes is what he told me. He goes an hour and a half out at the worst, but he goes, John, they should have been there probably within 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah. And he goes, the fact that didn't happen, he goes, it was major alarm bells going off in my mind. Sure. Meaning, their form of an Apache helicopter with guns ready to just, those machine guns, you get hit with one bullet, it'll wipe out half a human. The human body won't be recognizable, let alone the rockets. Yeah. So he said, so let me be clear on that. I will say this, I can't put 100% of the blame on what happened on October 7th on the Israelis, meaning all of the Israelis. And I can see why they wanted to get their pound, they wanted retaliation. What would happen if I'm convinced this is going to happen in the United States, Steve. Mm-hmm. We're going to have our October 7th. We're going to have the Chinese start attacking us. We're going to have all the people that have been brought over for the Middle East. We're going to have many Muslims. We're probably going to have Russians, and we're going to have many that are going to, right here in the United States, are going to do an October 7th style of an attack. Now, I believe they're going to come from within the United States and go back. And when they fall back, they'll fall back into some part of the city. But if we had a scenario where it was like a situation, what would we do in the United States? What would we do if we had a bunch of our people come across, shot up, and then taken back? We'd do everything. I'd want everything
right offhand. You'd have a martial law, declared martial law. You'd have military in your street like you've never seen before.
I would say we go get our people back, and I don't care what it takes. We're going to get everybody back, and they're going to feel a hurting. Yeah. So
let me ask you something. Why do you think China would want to hurt us? We're the biggest trading partners. We don't make anything anymore. We need everything that China makes. Why would we go after China? Why would China want to take us down? We're their customers. Why would they want to hurt us?
I'm going to have to find the article from Joel Skousen. I want to say it was in 2007. One of their top generals talked about how they intend on going after taking out the United States.
For what reason? What reason?
They want to control the world.
I don't buy that one. I don't buy that one. I'm sorry, I don't buy that one. But
I totally, okay. There are wicked people everywhere. There are people that want to control the world. I believe there's a faction within the Soviet Union. There's a faction within the Western Alliance, United States, Britain. Mm-hmm. If it's here in the West, it's everywhere. It's not just, and I guarantee you it's in China. Absolutely. They think in 50 to 100-year terms. They want to be in control of the world. It's the articles are out there already saying that they want to be the world's military power and they want to control the world. Absolutely. And here's another thing. What are they going to do with their tens of millions of men more than their females? I've been saying that for years. Why do they have that? They intend on having an army and going raiding people and taking our women. Absolutely. Why does China have tons of land right next to military bases, but here the biggest pig farm not next to a military base, down in central Utah, the biggest pig farm was owned by the Chinese. Why do they have that? It's not just to feed their people and send it back. They want to actually own. They want to settle the West. They want to bring their people here.
Don't you think maybe possibly that the reason the Chinese invested into our markets and bought a lot of farmland and bought a lot of stuff up is leverage to control us, to make sure that we do not make war on them? I look at more that way. I mean, if you control the food, you control the people. And we know what's going on right now with our food sources are being eliminated here and there. And that's no accident, by the way. It's no accident that we're having more food contamination than I've ever seen in my life. We're now using messenger RNA in our cattle, messenger RNA for everything, not only just the vaccines, which is crazy. It's detrimental and causing great harm. And then using it also on agriculture, messenger RNA. We got to go back to, we should probably talk about it sometime in point in time. Talk about Agenda 21, which is now called Agenda 2030. And you can talk about the TED speech a little bit that Bill Gates did. Was that like 2007 or 11? I can't remember. I think it's 11. Talking about decreasing the population, the world's population, which can easily be done if we.
Is that the one where you let the mosquitoes out?
No, they did that also too. He's into some bad stuff. He's in some really bad stuff. But talking about using vaccines to decrease the world's population. And I had an issue with my next door neighbor who was an oncologist.
It was something to the extent of, if we do a really good job with
vaccines
and birth control, we can reduce the population by a couple billion. I was like, that's doing a good job with vaccinations and birth control.
No, it's interesting. A lot of people didn't catch on to that. And I found it was interesting. I found people who actually, he doesn't mean that. Well, I saw the equation. The largest producer of CO2 are humans. And I saw the equation. So if we reduce this equation, the human equation, then this goes down. Then CO2 goes down. Of course, CO2 is not a noxious gas killing the planet, by the way. Actually, it's a very vital element in our agriculture.
Where there is more CO2 produced, there's actually more green.
Exactly my
plants.
point. Exactly my point. Right. So, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy, and he's been given honorary degrees in science and technology and medicine now. Is a very bad guy. And I still wonder sometimes of why his wife left him. I think there's something to do. I got a funny feeling there's something to do with that Epstein files and something she knows, and Bill Gates being there on the island.
But I'm much more nefarious. You want to know this is my opinion. This is Jon Twitchell's opinion. Totally. My opinion is it wasn't and Beos, when his wife divorced him, it wasn't because the wives are like, they're so bad. They're so bad. They're terrible. I can't believe how bad they are. No, these women know. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit deeper with this. So I'm going to try to take 2 minutes. They knew exactly what their husbands are doing. Most likely they want them to do it. Okay, John, how dare you say that? That couldn't be the case. What about Steve Jobs' wife? She's tied into Epstein. She's there. Yeah. These women, okay, so powerful women that are married to powerful men.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched 24, but in one of the seasons there was a black president, and the wife told the black president, when the guy was finally made president, I think because of an assassination or something like that. She's like, "You're the president now, honey. You can sleep with whoever you want. Just remember, I'm your wife, and I'm the first lady." You may not, if you don't know that these women exist, then you haven't been around powerful enough people, because I've met them. I know they exist, and I know this mentality exists within women. Not all, very small percentage, but those really, you know, um, those super narcissists only wind up marrying those women. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was the one that was stirring the drink? Was Ghislaine Maxwell? Was Jeffrey Epstein in charge of that whole thing? Or was it Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father was MI6 and Mossad, and was buried on the Mount of Olives under the highest state level of funeral proceedings? That's her father was buried under those conditions. Yeah. I guarantee. And her sister,
actually, his death was very mysterious. He goes sailing on his yacht, and they find his body. He's naked, and he fell off his boat. Evidently, he drowned. Which is, if you think about it, John, it's the perfect murder. There's no witnesses. There's no video. There's nothing.
I want to say that boat was named after Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I mean, it is the perfect murder. Take somebody on a boat, throw them off the boat. They can't swim very far. They drown.
So come to find out, shortly before, within, I want to say weeks, if not months, before he died, it was found out that he was double dealing also with the Russians. And that's when he wound up being found dead off that boat. Yeah, so another piece of this puzzle, Ghislaine Maxwell's sister is very heavily involved in cybersecurity. Big time. Look that up. So my point is, I guarantee when we get on the other side and the history of the world is shown and all the evil that was ever done, I think many people are going to be shocked with how evil many women are. And my guess is the reason why the divorce happened is so they could separate the funds.
Well, let me give you a quote that Mike Rivera used to say quite a bit on his show, is that when the history books are written, the victors are often very kind to themselves, portray themselves to be much better than they really are. So it does take time to actually get the truth out there. But again, those who write the history books, the victors are often very kind to themselves, portraying themselves to be much better than they really are. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Okay, so your thoughts. So we're at like 450 already. So what are your any thoughts that you want to share on that? I kind of went on my diatribe of these, why they got divorced. I don't think there was a surprise. I think these women knew. Jobs' wife was best pals with Ghislaine Maxwell. Those women knew what was going on. Yeah. There's no question in my mind.
Well, you know, if there's nothing there, and Trump says there's nothing there, but prior to saying that, of course, that was the silver bullet to take down the deep state, and they all bragged about it. Even Hegseth bragged about it. Kash Patel bragged about it. Dan Bongino bragged about it. Pam Bondi, we got it. We got the files. We're going to take down the deep state. Suddenly, we changed our mind here. There's nothing to see here. Sorry, but I don't buy that one. And the very idea, if there's nothing to see, then show it. But no, you can't do that. So there's something to it, unfortunately. And this president decided to stay on it.
I think it's the CIA, the Mossad, MI6, and you know, all the Five Eyes. I think they're all involved in it. If not, others are involved in it. Knew that it was running along, helping it happen, helping it manufacture. I mean, probably the way that it was the CIA directly involved? No. but they knew that it was going on. They knew that Israel was running it. They knew that MI6 was running it. And hey, you just share us all the video footage and we'll know. Why did
think about this? Think about this. You've got the legitimate APAC to buy off politicians. That's all legal. It's all legal. We donate to your campaign. We donate to your campaign. And of course, you're going to do something nice for us. We don't just give you money for nothing. So you have the legitimate APAC that are buying off politicians. Of course, at least 2 politicians that we know of now, they're not on the payroll of APAC, which would be Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey. But then on the other side of people you can't buy off, then you have the blackmail operation, the Epstein Black Book, the blackmail operation from Epstein. It's big, it's vast, it goes deep. It is probably targeted and probably has the dirt on some of the most prominent people, prominent people I'm talking about, people in government who can make change come about. Those are the people you want to hold tie down to say, you better go our way or we're going to release this.
It's not just the government. It's the major business moguls, business
judges,
leaders, it's the scientists, it's the judges,
it's a lot of people.
It's the heads of major colleges and people that are on their way up to being heads of major colleges. They're all compromised. And I think when we get on the other side of this life and the history of the world's revealed, like I said, people are going to be very surprised how many women were bad dealing too. I've said this before. I don't think Bill Clinton was the most evil of the Clintons.
No.
I firmly literally believe this. I think when we get on the other side, we will find out Hillary Clinton is a high priestess for Satan and a higher level than Bill Clinton was. The only reason why Hillary Clinton got upset with Bill is because Bill got caught and she had to now go in front of the world in the United States and say this is a family problem. She's like, could you just not control yourself so we didn't get found out?
Well, you also need to probably bring in maybe there's been a lot of crimes from the Clintons, mainly Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. As she said, if you take us down, you take me down, I'll take the rest of you down with me. And evidently meaning that she has the books, the black book of all the names and knows where the bodies are buried. But if you want to do some little research, look up the death, the killing of Vincent Foster. It was not a suicide. I can show you all the proof of that. But his dead man switch, he made a mistake in his dead man switch, and that he put his dead man switch not with a person or several people. By the way, Candace Owens now has 8 dead man switches out there in case something happens to her. The truth will get out. So she's made a very smart, calculating move to make sure that she stays alive. 8 dead man switches. But Vincent Foster had not made it that he didn't do the right thing. He didn't do something smart here. He actually put his dead man switch in his vault in his office, which Hillary later on said, I got to get in there. Of course, they hired a locksmith to open up the safe and take out all belongings that she thought would be vital to, as they say, security interest of the government. His dead man switch was in her hand now. So the assassination, why Vincent Foster was taken out, will never be known now because the information was removed. The dead man switches.
I think Vincent Foster also shot himself in the back of the head, if I remember correctly.
Shot himself in the side of the head with the wrong arm, with the wrong hand.
Right. And I think it was more than once, if I remember correctly, too. I don't
think there was 2, but it was something that was scripted, and the gun was placed in the hand, but it was placed in the wrong hand. Of course, you can tell right away by doing a gunpowder analysis on the hands. Of course, that wasn't done. You know exactly when government is involved in an assassination because they skip all the protocols that she would normally do. Like if you watch Forensic Files, those guys are top notch. But if you're involved in the killing, the assassination of somebody, then you
make sure you know which ones to not do.
Yeah, exactly. You say, we're not going to do that. We're not going to. Matter of fact, in Utah, the Utah Valley University, they've already altered the crime scene. They've been paving and washing things down, and they changed the whole area now. So that does not happen in real life. That does not happen. That only happens if the government is involved in an assassination and there's a cover-up going on. They've altered the scene.
Okay, real quickly, I want to touch on the President Trump not getting the Nobel
Nobel
Peace
Peace Prize.
Prize.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm like, it's a big I don't care. I mean, I looked. Al Gore got the Nobel Peace Prize. Henry Kissinger got the
Obama
Nobel
did.
Peace
Obama
Prize.
did. Yeah.
Obama got the Peace Prize. Now, if Obama got the Peace Prize just for being a black man voted in, I could see that. Hey, Trump deserves to have it. But the bottom line is, so many. Ted Roosevelt. Oh, who else was it? It was let's see. Woodrow Wilson got the Nobel Peace Prize. Jimmy Carter got it in 2002. I actually think he deserved it because he actually was doing some good stuff. But I mean, like, lots of bad people have received that the
Yeah.
Nobel Peace Prize. So the
It
bottom
it
line
is
is,
lost. It is lost its value, its meaning, John. It has lost its value and meaning. There's a big word in
did it
that
ever
whole.
have it? Did it ever have it?
I think it maybe one time. I mean, Carter does a lot. I mean, he did a lot of humanitarian things, building houses for poor people, and he did a lot of stuff on the religious side, going to different countries, helping other people. He may have been a lousy president, but I think he had a good heart. He
I
meant
think it was,
well, trying to help
yeah,
people.
I
I
would
give him
concur with
that.
that.
May have
I
been
would
a
concur with that.
lousy president, but other than that, he did some good humanitarian things. But there's one word in the whole phrase itself, the Nobel Peace Prize, the honor. It's peace. That middle word there, very important. 2 weeks ago, and you blow 11 people out of the water in a boat on saying that they were drug runners, and you're poking Russia, and you want to give Tomahawk missiles possibly to Ukraine to continue the war, the killing. That kind of goes against the whole peace thing, does it not? And so I said, nah, this is all for Donald Trump's ego. And I'm sorry, but no, I wouldn't have even considered him. He was added to the 300 list, mainly to appease his ego, and he was not deserving of the award at all. But I will throw something else at you, kind of interesting, is that the woman who did win, a Venezuelan citizen by the name of Maria Machado. Interesting, because she supposedly helped bring in democracy to take down a dictatorship, which is interesting because Donald Trump now is trying to find ways to get into Venezuela, make war on Venezuela with the whole excuse of they're the drug kingpin of fentanyl and every other kind of drug coming to America, killing a lot of these Americans. He's trying to find ways to get into a regime change in Venezuela. And it's interesting that there was a phone call between both of them, Donald Trump calling her, and then she making the comment saying, I'm accepting the award for Donald Trump. So Donald Trump couldn't handle that he didn't win it. Somehow had talked to her and she changed her mind to say, I'm accepting the award on behalf of Donald Trump. How much you want to bet there either was an intimidation made or she has been promised, if there is an invasion of Venezuela,
I
she has
think
been promised the presidency.
I think there was a very big carrot, and I'm thinking more along the lines of like 24 carats, if not, along those lines, right? There was a very big carrot offered, as opposed to, you know, there's always the
Hey, if
implied
she ends up
stick.
becoming the
There's always
president,
the
she
implied
ends up,
stick.
yeah, if she ends up becoming the president, and my theory is, I don't, I'm just going to say, well, got that one right. But
Yeah.
I mean, something happened between them for her to actually dumb it down to say, I'm accepting it for Donald Trump. That's just amazing. Something happened. Promises were made or threats were made. I don't know what it is, but if Donald Trump actually invades and does a regime change, well, then let's just say that Donald Trump undid all her work of democracy. Did he not? If you invade a country, you undid democracy. So all her work was done for nothing. So we'll have to keep an eye on that Venezuela situation because they truly want to get into Venezuela, the United States. They definitely want to get there.
Uh, I'm trying to remember the Economic Hitman.
Oh, the book.
The book Economic Hitman by his first name is John, last name starts with a P, and I can't remember.
Well, I could reach for it over here somewhere if I could find it. It's in my rack here somewhere.
But the thoughts of the Economic hitman come to my mind. In fact, I've got to figure out a way to get that guy and do an interview and just see what he thinks with about everything that's happening here lately. So yeah, bottom line is, I think there's a very good chance that you're right. I kind of had the same thoughts when I heard that she was accepting that on Donald Trump's behalf. I'm like,
I know. Yep. Strange, isn't it?
She's got some back channels that were offered. Now, okay, let's be clear. I don't have problems necessarily. That's the way of the world. That's the way these things happen between countries. Back channel deals happen all the time. And if it makes Venezuela more safe, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It's how it's done, what has to be given up, and who has to have pain inflicted on them. That's where the problem lies.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've already tried. I mean, look at the regime change, the attempt at a regime change with the American CIA coup back in 2014 in Ukraine, and they ousted the president of Ukraine. The CIA did that, and then put in Zelensky.
That was controlled by Russia.
Then they put in Zelensky. So I mean, our government does some bad things. They really do. They do.
Hey, terrible things are done in the name of the American public.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, stain gets on us, even though we want no part of it, right? I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with Ukraine fighting Russia, but I just don't want America's blood or treasure being used to do it. I'm very much an isolationist on that. I'm sorry. Just bring it back.
Well, there's just one key issue that just, if they didn't happen, it would have never happened. The war would have never kicked off. And Ukraine definitely wanted a NATO missile base in Ukraine, and that was very threatening to Russia. So basically, this war is because of that. That's your primary number one situation there, is that they insisted on having a NATO base.
Ukraine should have never have given up the nuclear missiles that they had to begin with at the end of the Soviet Union. They should have just kept them. That would have been the easy thing to do. Just keep them.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of things.
We're going to do this again.
Jeff, appreciate it always. Anytime you got a whole opening for me, let me know. Happy to step in. Keep looking for my texts. I know I'm making you laugh sometimes. I'm sending you stuff. By the way, that woman in Utah looks like a Rosie O'Donnell clone, does she not?
Okay, is she from Utah? Because I don't think she was. The way I read that, she wasn't from not necessarily from Utah, but let me put it this way: she's got a piercing right here. I mean, she looked like. Yeah,
I've met many of the Osmonds before in the hospital and taking care. Actually, I took care of Maria's mother and father, but they're nice people, and you're entitled to your opinions, and I'd have to agree with them that to giving a tribute song to Charlie Kirk was a good thing, and I applaud that. And again, we have a First Amendment right, and it protects speech you agree with as much as it protects speech you don't agree with. And to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, just because somebody has a difference of opinion here. I mean, I think the woman's a kind of a loony myself, but that's just my opinion.
Total loony. But God bless her. I love you, even though you're a total loony.
Well, she was a pagan. Remember that. She's a pagan. She's a pagan. You try to.
God bless her heart.
Yeah. God bless your pagan heart.
Yes.
How about that one? Many pagans to you. Have a pagan day.
May Jesus come into your heart.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, hey, lady, we need to have peaceful communications.
Exactly. Dialogue.
We need to have very difficult conversations. We need to have them in peaceful ways.
Yep.
And that's what Charlie Kirk was awesome about. And maybe that's the best way to finish this up. May we all be more like Charlie Kirk, including the leaders of our nation, especially Donald Trump and the leaders of the world. May they have a lot more conversations like that than where they send B-2s and try to blow people up.
I agree. 100%. There you go.
Steve Elkins, God bless you. Please tell our audience how people can find you.
Well, you can go to Republic Broadcasting Network. It's republicbroadcasting.org, and click on the button there, listen live. And if you miss a show, you can always go to the webpage and find my archives. I've got everything backed up. Name of the show is called Off the Beaten Path. It's Sunday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as our saying goes on RBN, because you can handle the truth. So check it out and join me for conversation. It's a call-in show, and happy to take your calls and discuss issues. Dialogue is big. I like dialogue. I love discussing issues, and I love good debate, just like Charlie did. I love a good debate. So welcome.
Steve, thank you for joining me, brother. God bless you.
All right. Health, happiness, and safe travels, everybody.
Take care, my friend. See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks, that was Steve Elkins. Please go to Republic Broadcasting Network. Look them up. They do good work over at Republic. A lot of good work over at Republic Broadcasting Network. Steve Elkins is definitely one of the great ones. And Off the Beaten Path. Remember that. Got to remember that. All right. So real quickly, I'm going to do a little on-air producing as I try to contact our next guest. I don't see him yet. And I'm going to pull up his phone number right now and give him a ring. See if we can get a hold of him. Wondering if there's some type of a lot of times I reach out to him Tuesday, but I called him yesterday. So hopefully he remembers this. And if not, it's going to be kind of a short show.
Hey, John.
Hey, Joel. I don't know. Are you able to join me today?
Yeah, I'm just in a major decision-making thing here on a construction project, so I'd forgotten all about it.
Okay.
But I can be over there in about 5 minutes.
Sounds good. All right. Look forward to catching you in about 5 minutes, Joel.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Bye. Talk to you in 5. All right, folks. That was Joel Skousen, as you heard. He has it'd be interesting to know what the construction project is that he's involved in. So one of the things that Joel Skousen does, I'm looking up, as you can all see, he has the strategic relocation, he has the secure home, and the high security shelter are 3 books that he has written. So he helps people come up with he actually has done quite a bit of consulting. His son Andrew Skousen is a physical engineer and helps people come up with secure homes. So it'd be curious if he was working on a project of his own or if he was working on it for another. All right. Well, let's pull up the Gateway Pundit real quick and hit let's see what that has to say. ICE partnership with Oklahoma Highway Patrol leads to 120 illegal alien arrests, including 91 driving big rigs with CDLs. Oh my gosh. I was a big rig driver almost 2 decades ago. And actually 2 decades ago. Now that I think about it. And I was starting to see the beginning of that. It wasn't really, really big. But it was starting to happen, and the bottom line is that's what happened. From what we understand is the guy that tried to turn his semi right in the middle of the road that wound up killing people. So what happens is when people when someone does a U-turn with a big rig, that is like the number one no. You do not do that on a big road. You don't do that on a main road, because people will just, what happens is they don't understand what's going on. They're not seeing, they see it, but they don't know what they're looking at. So by the time they understand what happened, it's very frequent that people will hit their brakes and their hood will, the hood of the car, meaning where your engine compartment is, fits right underneath that that trailer. And the place where you're sitting up gets cut off. And so people get killed just from that happening, because your cars don't come to a stop and it takes off, it'll take off someone's head. Trying to see what else is out there. So okay, see if I can find that article. Another one. Tucker claims politicians are having a lot of orgies and congressmen's personal lives are getting weird. Speaking with Representative Tim Burchett, Carlson claimed that the personal lives of the members of Congress are getting weird, including rampant politicians in participation in orgies. Similar accusations were made by former Rep. Madsen Cawthorn just a year ago. Carlson, who has long been a critic of the DC establishment, pointed out the shift in behavior among lawmakers. He said, "I have noticed, having spent my life in DC, that people's personal lives are getting weirder in Congress. Have you noticed that? Without implicating anyone by name, I don't think I'm imagining this. It's not just sleeping with your scheduler. It's weirder than that. Have you noticed that?" He goes, "I try to stay in my office as much as possible," says Burchett, when responding to that statement. "Well, I just want to say for the record, I have never heard of anybody participating in an orgy in Washington, D.C. in my entire life, and I've heard a lot about it recently," Carlson explained. So that is, with a pause, "I wasn't there. I'm not going there, but I think that's real." Carlson described the DC politician scene as involving a lot of orgies, and that the nation's capital is becoming kinkier by the day. Burchett said he hopes that is not actually the case, and said he has never been invited if it is. Well, we know that sex is used to compromise members of Congress and all sorts of powerful people. Of course, why wouldn't it be used? It would make perfect sense. Now, the question is, how many of the women in Congress are involved? We know that there were one of the lawmakers' top people used I believe it was a senatorial hearing room as a romp for him and another individual. So I would say I think it's very likely. Does it surprise anybody? It wouldn't surprise me. Here's something that I think is also very important that we mention, and I actually wish I would have covered this with Steve Elkins. Breaking: Supreme Court won't review the outlandish $1.4 billion judgment against Alex Jones. On Tuesday, the United States Supreme Court rejected Alex Jones' appeal of $1.4 billion Sandy Hook judgment. Alex Jones owes families who lost their children that day $1.4 billion for claiming the massacre was a hoax. Regardless of his remarks, how is 1.4 billion a reasonable punishment for speaking your opinion? Connecticut court in 2022 ordered Alex to pay this massive judgment after a far left judge found that Jones had greatly harmed the people that the findings were against. All right, let's go to Joel Skousen. Joel, thank you for joining me today here on Talk with Jon. I appreciate your time. Joel is joining us today on Talk with Jon on KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. You can go to our Rumble page, our YouTube page, and our X page and see this show and other shows. So, Joel, thank you for being here. Appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure, John.
So, there were a number of topics that I reached out to you that I wanted to talk about. The Hamas accepts phase 1 of the Gaza peace deal, more insights, and a dead end in the Charlie Kirk investigation. The U.S. government is partially shut down. The war against the radical SPLC, and I would also say the ADL. DOJ goes after Comey and others in lawfare community, and China's stranglehold on rare earth metals. Now, you and I just had a quick chat. I called you yesterday, said, hey, these are the topics that I'm thinking about. And I said to you, I actually think that the China controlling the rare earth minerals and metals is going to be one of the biggest things that we wind up having to deal with here in the United States, and the rest of the world is going to have to wind up dealing with. And you said, yes, you wanted to talk about that first. And how far off base am I in that statement that could be maybe the biggest thing when it comes to the fight with China here in the next couple of years?
Well, every one of our high-tech weapon systems depends on rare earth minerals, as well as computer chips, cars, magnets, etc. And all of that is made in China because China has been subsidizing that industry to make sure that it undercuts all the prices of everything around the world. And so it killed all the industry, including the United States. The United States used to produce all of its own rare earth minerals, and it still can. But it's all shut down and the equipment is outdated. The processing facilities are outdated, and it's going to take time to rebuild that. It needs to be rebuilt, even if it runs at a loss. These are essential industrial minerals for national security. And this is something that with government contracts, they should be able to get up and running, but at a reasonable price that it takes to produce those.
I want to say kind of one of the first times that I remember hearing about this, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I want to say it was even an article you had within the World Affairs Brief that there was some Australian mines that were that China had taken full control of, and that I'm like down under in Australia, they're taking control of these mines. And so I think that was the first time that it hit my wheelhouse and I became aware of it. But it's not just, do I understand correctly? Basically, they have control of the entire world. One of the places they control is Afghanistan.
Well, that's right. And Afghanistan does have mineral deposits. Now, there weren't any processing facilities in Australia, but China did buy up almost all the mineral rights in Australia. And so that's one of the reasons why I said that guarantees that China will occupy Australia in the next war.
Okay. So do they need to occupy Australia in order to have control of those? Is it something they need that they need to even worry about?
Well, yes. I mean, it just depends on how much, raw materials that they need. But it's not just rare earth minerals. There are bauxite and aluminum and other, types of things. You see, China really doesn't have a lot of its own resources. It is completely energy dependent. It doesn't have oil. It doesn't have natural gas. It needs all of those things imported. And it can't feed its people. And so this is kind of a hostage situation. And with the new tariffs, China has stopped buying U.S. soybeans, for example, and corn, and a lot of hay. It is getting it from Brazil now, one of the BRICS countries. And so the American farmers are really in a bad way because they have been used to the higher prices available for export. And now those prices have dropped because of an abundance of crops with no buyer now. And so they're talking about subsidies from government. They want to bail out. This isn't a national security issue. This is something that should never have happened. We shouldn't have allowed sale of crops to an existential enemy. And we shouldn't have allowed our farmers to get dependent on that income. And it distorted the prices, etc. But that's another story. The main point I want to make, though, is that China or Trump continues to think that dictators are his friend when he meets with them and they flatter him. That's what happened with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. And before, Putin flattered him to death. And it took a slap in the face to Trump of real aggression, which Putin never stopped, by the way. Even right after the Alaska summit, he never stopped attacking Ukraine. And so it takes a real slap in the face for Donald Trump to wake up and realize that these dictators are really awful people. In fact, even Alex Jones's team is starting to realize that maybe Russia's an evil empire after saying that they were in solidarity with Russia, having to drunk the Kool-Aid about this all being the West's fault about Ukraine, and it wasn't. But in any case, China now slapped Trump in the face, and now Trump canceled his meeting with Xi Jinping. He was going to meet. It was going to be a wonderful meeting, he said, and now that's been canceled. Donald Trump has woken up to the fact that China really means business in its preparation for war, just like Putin really means business in terms of taking back the states, starting with Ukraine, and the Baltics are next. Not only to test, NATO's resolve about defending that, but it'll be an incremental taking back of these countries. Moldova maybe next, even before the Balkans. All of these countries, the Soviet Union put Russian people into Moldova. They put Russian people into Ukraine. They put them into the Baltics. Every one of the Baltic countries have hundreds of thousands of Russians in the northern sector, or the sector closest to Russia. And the Soviets forced them to move into the Baltics because they were planning on faking their own demise. And conservatives still haven't woken up to that generally about the phony fall of the Soviet Union. But that leaves Kim Jong-un of North Korea, the lone false friend of Donald Trump. And maybe Donald Trump will not wake up to Kim Jong-un until World War III and North Korea attacks the West and South Korea, Guam, and maybe Hawaii. I mean, this is just shows the stupidity of Donald Trump in terms of foreign policy.
Is there any way that the United States can get back economic power of being the economic powerhouse and get back to get the rare earth minerals, just getting all the different minerals they need? I mean, like you said, aluminum, tin, all these different metals, even a lot of our steel comes from over in China. I mean, the bottom line is we need to start producing these things, become independent. And is there any way to get the rest of the world to not being dependent upon China as well, and go to these other countries that, where China has bought the mineral rights, and just say, hey, you need to figure out a way to reject it so they don't?
Well, in the first place, Donald Trump has not banned China for buying land in the United States. I mean, this is probably the first thing they should do, is kick China out of this country. Treat it as the existential. They bought land near every major military facility in the United States. And that means you can put warehouses in there, and you can put farm buildings, and then you could put hundreds of drones in those warehouses and then launch an attack on the United States on air bases out of that farmland. It's just unconscionable that Trump, with this recent slap in the face from Xi Jinping, has not banned foreign countries from owning U.S. land, and they should not be able to own U.S. land or corporations.
Okay, so here's a question for you. along those lines. Should anybody who is not a United States citizen be allowed to own land within the United States?
No, I don't think they should. They should be able a U.S. citizen. They can, have arrangements with other companies, et cetera, but they've got to be a U.S. citizen to own exclusive U.S. companies, not international corporations, but U.S. companies and land in the United States.
So, would you allow international companies to own land in the United States?
No, I wouldn't allow anyone but a citizen to have, land in the United States. That's the only safe thing to do to stop from hair splitting between the difference between a shell company, which is international, which is controlled by the Communist Party of China through various shell companies. And it's the same thing. You've just got to be a U.S. citizen. And that part of that citizen should be, a test oath of allegiance that you have no relationship sworn under oath with any communist or existential enemy of the United States.
Well, that's definitely an oath that needs to be implemented, especially within the United States Congress, and any federal position that is held. I think that should be something that someone has to is swear an oath to, not just to the Constitution. They need to disavow any being a citizen or joint citizen of any other country. I think that's one of the big problems that we have right now within our country, along with our lawmakers.
Well, yes, especially vis-a-vis Israel and the dual citizenship between Israeli and Americans. It should be one or the other.
It's not, but it's also, I believe there's people that are that have Indian dual citizenship. Omar, I bet you she has dual citizenship. I think bottom line is you have the citizenship to the United States, and that's it. That'd be something that I'd fall on.
Well, the only exception might be Canada. If you have a country that shares a lot of your common values, et cetera. But there's a problem with that too, because Canada has an open immigration policy, and so they have so many Muslims and Orientals and Chinese in.
Right.
That would be a problem. So I guess 50 years ago you could have had dual citizenship with Canada, and that would be all right, but not anymore.
Well, and Canada is, any leftist policy that they want to see implemented in the United States, they're implementing it here. I don't know that they were that, they weren't that left 40 years ago.
That's right. But then they had a welfare system. You see, they started out with a socialist system in healthcare, and slowly it has turned most people into socialists in Canada, except in Alberta, which is very conservative and wants to leave Canada, but that's probably never going to happen as well.
All right, so there's some other topics to hit. Hamas, more insights on the Charlie Kirk investigation.
Well, let's go to the Middle East, because that's a real hot topic.
And I was going to say, okay, let's do that.
Well, it was one of my comments in the World Affairs Brief last week on the Middle East peace deal is how ubiquitous the flattery of Netanyahu was of Trump in there. He just sat there and gave, Trump was the savior of the world. The whole world is a better place because of Donald Trump, et cetera. And, Donald Trump is really on the verge of, creating wars all across the country. He doesn't deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. And the wars are not exactly just in many cases, and he's really not doing what he should doing vis-a-vis the real existential enemies, Russia and China. If he goes through with Tomahawk missiles and allows them to start to attack Russian infrastructure, that might bring Putin to stop the Ukraine war for a while. It won't stop Putin's intent of joining with China and doing a preemptive strike on the United States, which is what we need to prepare for. But in the Middle East, there's no way that this is going to make a long-lasting peace. The only reason the other Arab countries are kowtowing to this is because they fear what Donald Trump may do to them versus sanctions, oil, and all kinds of things that he's got, and he's using, American muscle to muscle his way in. There's this issue, but speaking of Hamas, took the easy route to accept the first phase. They really have nothing more to gain from holding the hostages. And so it was an easy thing to give up the rest of the hostages. But you'll notice that Hamas has not agreed to the more important things, which is to give up governance in Hamas. And in fact, there are now infighting between various factions of the revolution against Israel in the Gaza Strip, and Hamas is fighting against other factions right now. But Hamas is still a force to be reckoned with, and there's no way that you're going to be able to tell who is Hamas and who isn't Hamas when the peace deal comes. They may well accept the second part in a very disguised manner of saying, yes, we'll give up governance, and then they'll have people change their spots and change their colors and join other outfits but there's no way, with the hatred that there is among the Palestinians, that there's ever going to be peace between Israel and the Palestinians. They have created hundreds of thousands of enemies with the amount of civilians that they've killed in this Gaza campaign. And remember that Israel fomented this strike on October 7th, 2 years ago.
How would you say they fomented the strike?
They pulled back 80% of the Gaza brigade and told them to stand down, moved them to the West Bank, so they were 7 hours away, so that they could not respond. That fence, the most secure fence in the world, was totally electronically monitored, and they stood down the monitors so that they said, don't talk to us, don't alert us if there's anything going on, because they tried to alert the headquarters, said, we don't want to hear it. And don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah. Well, I just with my last guest, we were talking about how long would it take. Now, if I understand correctly, Israel does not have Apache helicopters, but they have attack helicopters that are similar to it. How long would it take one of those helicopters to get up in the air and to get on station in where the attack was coming across on October 7th?
30 to 45 minutes.
From a cold start to loading them. Okay, so can you explain what the process would be? So
the point is, they didn't show up. Well, they did show up early. I mean, they were the first response at all. In fact, one of the complaints was that they shot up fairly indiscriminately among the crowd of people at the stupid Gaza, celebration that was going on, and
the music festival.
And so a lot of civilians got killed. A lot of Israelis got killed by the helicopters too. It's very difficult in a melee of this kind of rebellion to pick your enemies and who's who in those types of things. But they did get on scene, within a couple of hours. It really should have only taken them 30 to 45 minutes if they were on alert. And remember, they did have alert. They knew this was coming. They have spies all through Gaza. This was no surprise to Israel. They let it happen, and they purposely delayed the response to let it be as bad as possible so that hostages would be taken. I mean, this is unconscionable. This was like 9/11. This was like Pearl Harbor. It was a deep state operation which let it happen. I mean, they didn't hire Hamas to do it like we hired the terrorists. The CIA, the deep state hired the terrorists to play like they were going to they did hijack some airplanes, but they couldn't fly them. They didn't know how to fly them. These airplanes came back with uninterruptible autopilots pre-programmed to fly this route and to fly into the only one that, well, even the one that hit the Pentagon was pre-programmed. That came from the West Coast, by the way. Two of those airplanes, one from Boston Logan and one from Dulles, switched places with drone aircraft that came from somewhere in the West Coast, perhaps Area 51. These are specially modified 757s that took the place of the passenger. Now, I don't know what happened to the passengers, but I'm sure they were killed. But the terrorists could not have done. They could not have created alternative aircraft to switch places with the passenger aircraft. But that's what happened.
Okay, so what can be done? Donald Trump didn't get his Nobel Peace Prize. It's gone to some lady in Venezuela who is supposedly part of the opposition.
Yeah, and she is legitimate opposition. It was a well-deserved Peace Prize for her. Miss Campos is very anti, communist down there, and she has been persecuted royally, not allowed to run for election, and so it's been. She deserved it much more than Donald Trump.
But so Donald Trump isn't going to get his Peace Prize, but he was over there, in his words, finalizing the deal in Egypt with Gaza. But it's kind of funny how Hamas didn't show up to this, and neither did Benjamin Netanyahu didn't show up.
Well, remember that Donald Trump, in his address to the Israeli parliament, asked them to give a pardon to Netanyahu for all the corruption charges, which are true. He has taken bribes. He has given special privileges to people, giving him millions of dollars, etc. He is corrupt. He's a globalist. He's a Henry Kissinger protege who paid for his education, made him wealthy, set him up for politics. All that was done by the globalists. This guy is corrupt. This guy does not deserve. And Donald Trump, because he says Netanyahu knows how to win. Donald Trump is big about winning anything or making deals. Donald Trump is a fool. He doesn't know foreign policy. He doesn't know conspiracy. He's done a good thing in stopping DEI in this country, but he's done a very bad thing in the tariff battle and in foreign policy.
Okay, so let me ask you, what can be done now in Gaza with Israel? What do you think should be done?
Well, there isn't any way to have peace in there except to have separate countries. The only way to have peace in Gaza is to have it occupied by Israel so they don't have to attack. You see, remember, Israel occupied Gaza years ago. I was there in Israel when they occupied it, and they forced all the Jewish settlers who had all of these greenhouse companies. They were making food for a lot of Jews, kosher food around the world that was shipped from Gaza, and the Israeli government forced them all out, said that we're going to hand it over to Gaza, we're going to fence it, and we're going to be safe. But of course, they allowed, in fact, they funded Hamas to a certain extent to undermine the Palestinian Authority. And they've still been funding Hamas through Qatar. Qatar has been using as a bagman for the deep state and for Israel to give and funnel money to Hamas. That's why Qatar was holding the Israeli leader or the Hamas leadership in luxurious apartments there in Qatar. And of course, Israel went and attacked them. They didn't tell Qatar. They claimed that they had told the United States, but the United States didn't tell them. And now, in compensation, the United States forced Netanyahu to give an apology, whatever that's worth, to Qatar. And now, of course, it's allowing Qatar to have an F-15 training facility in the Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. Now, this is not new. We've done that with Germany. We've done this with the Netherlands and others who have a facility at Holloman Air Force Base and other Air Force Base where they can come and live and have their pilots live and train with American instructors here in the United States. So this isn't an issue of national security. It's a problem in the sense that, Qatar is a lackey for the deep state. And, it has funded terror on behalf of the deep state and done a lot of that during this time. And so has Israel. Israel's funded terrorists. They helped train ISIS leaders, for example. They gave medical care to wounded ISIS when they were wounded in the Battle of Mosul. They were flown by U.S. helicopters into Israel for medical care. I mean, if the American people knew how the United States government, the deep state portion of it, funded terror and created these terrors in Syria and other places, they'd be, outraged. But there really isn't anything you can do because we don't control the deep state. And Trump has not been able to dismantle the deep state. He thinks the deep state is the unelected bureaucracy, like most people in the Libertarian Party know, the unelected bureaucracy that is anti-Trump. No, those aren't deep state. Deep state know that there's an alternative hierarchy that they answer to. They know who gives them their money. They know who gives them orders, and they're not elected officials. You're not deep state unless you know that hierarchy. The other people who aren't deep state are leftists, they are Democrats, they are people who are useful idiots to the deep state, but they aren't true deep state unless they are taking orders from an alternative hierarchy that they realize exists. And those people never come out and admit. We've never had any whistleblowers from those people because they get killed if they blow the whistle on the deep state.
Wow. Okay.
So going back to your question, I don't think there's a solution in Gaza other than have an armed occupation of Gaza to make sure that, and Israel would lose soldiers, especially now that they've let Hamas grow up and get 5 to 10 or 20,000 troops in Gaza. You get sniped at constantly. You'd lose soldiers, and the Israelis don't have any toleration for death because resurrection is and the afterlife is a very ambivalent philosophy within Judaism. Some believe in it, most don't. Most Jews, in fact, are secular. And that's why there's so much weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth about getting their body back, because they just don't have this confidence in the resurrection like we do in Christianity.
Anything else that you want to cover on Hamas, the Middle East with Donald Trump? Well,
and the only other thing I would say is this whole rebuilding project with international money, whatever that's going to be U.S. money, as if we could afford that. This whole rebuilding project shows the ignorance of Donald Trump and Netanyahu about World War III. There are no long-term building and construction mode. They're going to be ongoing during World War III. It's going to stop all of that. Anybody who's thinking of anything beyond 5 years of completing a big development is ignorant of World War III. We're going to be in a World War III with Russia and China, and there's going to be no electricity during a large portion of that. You're not going to survive hardly, let alone finish construction projects. And that shows the ignorance of the establishment world. Everybody in Wall Street is talking about 5 and 10-year building programs, and it's just not going to happen.
Let's see. Do we want to hit anything on any more insights on Charlie Kirk? Do we want to? Is there anything you want to cover?
The reason that we're at a dead end, and there's, as I've covered in the World Affairs Brief, there's 3 or 4 major theories, alternative theories to the Tyler Robinson shooting with the 30-06. And there's no way that we're going to resolve any of those without the results of the autopsy. And somebody has given a stand down order, a gag order to the Utah Office of Medical Examiners, and they will not return calls. They will not tell what the autopsy is. They only admitted with an anonymous phone call to Laura, the mortician, who has a large social media presence, because she was talking about there's got to be an autopsy. It's illegal not to have one. Not even Erica Kirk could demand they don't do an autopsy. It's going to happen with a murder. And they had someone anonymously call from the medical examiner saying there was an autopsy, and I won't tell you what it revealed. And they're not going to tell what it reveals. But we need to know what kind of bullet was found, what condition it was in. The surgeon told Andrew Colvey of the Turning Point USA that it was found just under the skin, and that's impossible with a 30-06 shot, unless it bounced around and came back, against the neck or something, and that couldn't have happened from the position that Tyler Robinson was shooting. It would have gone right through his neck. There was no exit wound, apparently, but we need to know exactly what the autopsy is. We need to know the direction of the bullet in there and what the condition, and why isn't that bullet being produced so that it can be matched to his rifle, because that's what you really need to do to prove. And they're going to try to use, I've predicted, the circumstantial evidence of this very questionable confession by text message. And there's no electronic trail to that text. They haven't taken a picture of that text message on his cell phone. They've got it through NSA type spying on people's cell phones, etc. And it looks very much like it's been doctored. The language is very rare for someone of that that type. So we just don't know enough, and that's why it's
something like one of the odd, like, squad car.
That's
was
right.
they used the term squad car. That's
what 20-year-old is going to call it a squad car instead of a cop car or a police car, etc. And there's all kinds of other things about my love and other things, and it's very doctored up, it appears, with this homosexual relationship with this transgender who's gone underground now. And anyway, it's just too much to know in terms of motive. There's a lot of people talking about the Israeli motive because Charlie Kirk was going against Israel, trying to talk back about the control of Israeli or Jewish donors to his organization, which is true. The Jews and the pro-Israeli Jews are giving millions of dollars to control the narrative throughout social media. And there was some backlash about that, whether or not that's enough to, have a motive of murder. But you've got to remember that this cover-up, like 9/11, where the Jews were peripherally involved, Israel was peripherally involved, but they couldn't have modified the aircraft over in Area 51. They couldn't have done the switch. They couldn't have done the military exercise with planes dive bombing on the White House. They couldn't have done the cover-up. All of this had to be done with the deep state. This bolsters my point of view that Israel is an addendum to the deep state. It doesn't control America, but it is very clearly the Mossad and other Shin Bet organizations do assassinations internationally. They do foment terror. They do train terrorist leaders for the deep state so that they have plausible deniability, but they don't control the world. The deep state is larger than Israel.
So I'd like to hit a little bit on the war against the radical Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL as well.
Well, the FBI, used to pay for millions of dollars to the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Conference, for intelligence about domestic terrorist threats. And of course, SPLC was only interested in labeling conservatives as radical extremists or white supremacists, like Turning Point USA, or like Moms for, against abortion and other things like that. These are not terrorists. These are not domestic terrorists. And it's very, Kash Patel of the FBI has done a lot of bad things. He's done a few good things. This is one of the few good things. He's cut off the funding. So the SPLC is no longer on the gravy train of the federal grants. Now, they are still getting funding from some federal grants that are laundered through state law enforcement agencies in blue states, which are still funding the SPLC. But it's a major loss of funding for them to get cut off by the FBI. And, the ADL is a much more surreptitious connection between government. It's not funded by government like the SPLC. And so it's not that they're able to cut it off like they can with SPLC, but they do have the ADL and other Jewish anti or pro-Semitic against anti-Semitism organizations do have a lot of influence because of the political correctness of supporting or of universal denial of anti-Semitism. The problem with anti-Semitism is you can't criticize legitimately anybody who's a Jew or Israel. You be called anti-Semitic, and that's been one of the problems. Is that people get called anti-Semitic for legitimate criticism of what's Israel doing, and that's happening today as the level of criticism against Israel's not indiscriminate, but heavy-handed attack against Gazan civilians. Now, it is true that Israel does tell them to get out of their apartments, but they have nowhere to go. A lot of them can't get out. Hamas sometimes doesn't let them get out. They want to increase the casualties. And of course, the Gazan Red Cross and other Red Crescent and other organizations has elevated the number of casualties. I don't know to what degree. They're the only ones in there doing the count, but it's probably not 70,000. It's probably something less than that. But there has been a lot of death and destruction. I don't know where these streams of people coming down the coastal highway, walking down back to southern Gaza are going to live. Their homes are mostly in ruins. So this is a bad situation.
Let's see. Let's hit. I want to hit the DOJ going after Comey and others, and then also the U.S. government partial shutdown.
Well, Comey was not treated like Donald Trump. He was not photographed. He didn't have to do the perp walk. He wasn't handcuffed when he came into.
Or Roger Stone.
And
in fact, I want to say a number of the charges were very similar to Roger Stone's. I mean, I would say that it was very close to Roger Stone, what they claimed was going on and why they were arresting Roger Stone. Sorry.
Well, the trouble with what's going on is a lot of that is still secret, within the bowels of the Democratic Party and the deep state part of the FBI, unless you get whistleblowers talking about what was said. I mean, there could be a RICO charge there. This was a conspiracy to use law in an unlawful way, to get Donald Trump. But you need whistleblowers. You need people to come out of the woodwork to say what Comey told them in private, and those are very hard to come by in the deep state. So they're getting him on some lesser charges, lying to Congress, and they've got him on that, but whether or not he's going to get a serious sentence out of that depends on a judge. And those judges are a lot controlled by the deep state. But it was telling that they didn't treat him like a real criminal, and they shouldn't have treated Donald Trump like that. They shouldn't have treated Roger Stone like that. So they did, you just don't need to handcuff, people who are coming along willingly, et cetera. But they do that, for January 6 people, they put SWAT teams in there. And now we found out, of course, and that's one of the good things the FBI has revealed, is there were 276 odd, FBI agents that were put into harm's way there in January 6 to play like they were MAGA, recipients, or at least to induce them to do radical acts. And people should go to jail for that.
My question is okay, so you have those that you're claiming are there. How many others were there because of the federal government that weren't necessarily FBI, but being on the payroll of the federal government in some other group or another? How many others?
There were buses that trucked in Antifa and other people into there dressed up like, all of that needs to be prosecuted. They need to really go through and find out who rented those buses and, who made those arrangements, who paid those people. They were all paid. And a lot of it could have come from George Soros, who is funding Antifa. There's a lot of convoluted ways that the left has of funding these things that can't be traced through the government. It's a tough thing because there's a lot of cover-up opportunities by the deep state in this, but at least they're making an effort to go after the people. They're trying to get into, Merrick Garland and Bob Barr and Hillary Clinton and other people. I doubt if they'll be able to do much, frankly.
So we're coming close to the time. Let's hit the U.S. government having a partial shutdown.
Yeah, now that's a very good. It's the first time, Donald Trump didn't do this on his first thing. He was clueless about how to shut down the government properly and still pay for essential services. This time he's doing it the right way. There is money coming in. He can pay the military. He can pay for passport services. He doesn't have to shut down the things. He can pay for ATC controllers, but a lot of these are leftists and Democrats. Over 10% of the air traffic controllers are calling in sick. Now, this is illegal. The transportation, Sean Duffy, who is one of the finest people in the Trump cabinet, he should be requiring them to stand or to come forth and submit to an independent, not a doctor of their choosing, an independent doctor's appraisal and prosecute these people. The reason they aren't is that if you start prosecuting and firing these people, we're already short of air traffic controllers, and it's only going to exacerbate the problem. So they're caught between a rock and a hard spot about how to keep the air traffic system controlling with these calling in sick and not having further shortages permanently. it takes a long time to train an air traffic controller, as long as it takes a pilot in many regards.
So with the air traffic controllers and the TSA, are they not being paid at all, or right at this time?
Right. These are people who are going to get back pay for that. There's another issue that Donald Trump is using the shutdown to actually fire large and furlough large blocks of federal bureaucrats, and he's not going to give them back pay, he says. Now, this is going to be challenged in court, of course, but he's making Democrats pay for them causing the shutdown by not agreeing to this. And I don't agree with the bill. This was a Biden budget, it was way over budget, but that's not what the Democrats were complaining about. That's what Thomas Massey and the Freedom Caucus was complaining about and not voting for it, because it's over budget. We really need to cut these things. Now you get a chance, and Donald Trump's cutting foreign aid and other things like that in the government shutdown, and hopefully he won't do any back pay to these people. But I have to give Donald Trump credit for this. He is trying to do a shutdown that does not penalize the normal people who don't deserve to be penalized, but he's putting the pressure and the penalty on bureaucrats, which is where it should be.
I would like to see him maybe with the partial government shutdown, maybe some of the congressmen's and senators' staff should not be paid as well. Kind of makes me think that would help this help it get back to work. Now, on the flip side of the coin, I'm fine with the government not being as big and bloated as they've been. I'm like, okay, so, and with it would be nice to get rid of the NTSB, or not the NTSB. Well, probably them too.
No, the NTSB is very necessary. They do a good job.
The TSA, TSA. It would be nice to see get rid of the TSA. I'd like to see them go. But the air traffic controllers, there's a part of me that's like, ugh, I could see where they're like, I can't afford gasoline to come into work. I could see some of them claiming that being the scenario, and so they've got to figure out a way to make that work. But there are so many in the federal government that can go bye-bye.
Well, ATC is not one of those. I'll tell you, as a pilot, I can tell you.
No, I agree. The ATC, no. In fact, what I'm trying to make the point is they need to figure out a way to get those guys paid so they can have gas to put in their vehicles to come to work.
Well, everybody has enough savings. These are well-paid individuals. These are not low-paid employees. So they do have, and I'm sure they have enough savings to go a month or so, without paying. But if he's going to pay the military, he's got to pay the ATC, in my opinion, because they're much more essential. I think you could be selective on the military as well. You could, pay people in combat if it's a legitimate type of thing, and in special things. But there are ways that you can save money, and if he can pay the military, which is a huge budget, by the way, it's a huge budget. That they can keep essential services going in the United States and let a lot of things dry up on the vine that should dry up on the vine.
Well, we're at 6:00. Is there anything else that you're like, I really want to, that's happened in the last few days that you're like, I want to bring this up before you drop off?
Well, in Friday's World Affairs Brief, I'm going to be doing a major issue on the China threat, especially the military threat, the difficulty of confronting China with our airlift capacity, which is limited in terms of, people just don't realize how much airlift capacity is necessary to fight in the Far East. China.
Sorry, did you say airlift or
airlift?
Airlift,
airlift capacity. Yeah. We're talking about hundreds of tons that have to be transported rapidly by air in order to keep troops supplied if they're in conflict with Red China. who doesn't have to travel very far, to resupply their people. It's going to be a major thing. And there's a lot of technology now that China's doing. I'm going to cover all that in Friday's World Affairs Brief. People can get a free sample copy on Friday of going to worldaffairsbrief.com if they haven't already done so, and click on request a sample, and you get the current brief if you do it on Friday.
Well, I'm going to have the guest that was on right before you, because one of the disagreements that we had is he said, well, China's not coming for the United States. China's
What?
not. Yeah. I was like, what? I was like, I said, too bad Joel isn't on with us right now, because there was a general, I think it was back in, I want to say 2010, 2007, there was a general that got up in front of their General Assembly and said, hey, our plan is to take out the United States.
Yeah, that was General Hao Tian, 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
2011. So I'm going to text in that. And Hao Tian?
Hao Tian. Haotian. Deputy Minister or Military Deputy Minister in the military. But in any case, he outlined in a speech that was leaked to the Epic Times about how they needed North and South America, or North America, Canada, and the U.S. in order to capture the agricultural land. And how they were not going to be easy on the West like the Nazis were. He even talked about needing Lebensraum. He used the German term, needing living space. And they were going to be ruthless. Anyway.
That's one thing that I brought up with them. I'm like, why do you think they have, I believe it's over 10 million more men than women. That's one of the reasons is they can, hey, boys go to war. And if you find yourself a woman, you've got something. All right. Well, Joel, I want to say thank you for joining us again. We look forward to having you back every second Tuesday of the month. It's great having you here. Thank you for all the good work you do at the World Affairs Brief. Folks, go to the World Affairs Brief. I get it every single week. I pay for it, and it's some of the best money that I spend. It's less than $50 a year. I want to say it's like $48 a year.
$48 a year, about $1 a week.
So it's well worth your time. And the great thing is you also get an MP3 version of it, so you can listen to that as well. So Joel, thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, and appreciate your time today.
My pleasure, John. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Bye. Folks, the Spin Talk with John. Look forward to being next week. And I don't know if I'll be using this same screen or not. So, folks, this has been Talk with John. Have a great evening.